Good day and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today we're going to continue our ongoing coverage of the civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia. So first to start the day, we continue to receive intelligence and information that the regime of Abiy Ahmed and the federal forces that are still loyal to Abiy Ahmed have continued its aerial onslaught of the capital city of the Tigray region, Mekele, for the fifth straight day. Now, these strikes obviously if you are on the ground in Mekele and bombs are dropping, it is absolutely terrifying. But with that being said, these strikes are few and far between. They are happening not with multiple uses of aircraft, but one aircraft at a time, dropping one or two individual bombs on targets of possible opportunity. So we've received information that the latest targets in these strikes could have been within the vicinity of Mekele University. So obviously the regime of Abiy Ahmed may be under the impression that the University of Mekele could be repurposed for a possible military role, and are looking to target possible areas around Mekele University. But again, that has not been confirmed. The only thing that has been confirmed is the fact that the federal regime, the Abiy regime, is dropping ordnance on a fairly large city of a 500,000 people. And that's where we currently stand. We continue to also receive reports of one or two strikes against possible road columns of the Tigrayan Defense Forces. We're unsure how effective those strikes have been, and we continue to not hear so much about the use of drones at this time. Could they still be being used? Yes, possibly, but unfortunately we're just not hearing or getting a lot of intelligence about the use of especially any like the Turkish TB2 drone and the use of the MAML missile. But we will continue to monitor that situation and report if anything changes in the use of the possible drones, especially the Turkish drones. Within the area of Dessie and Kombolcha, the fighting continues. The Tigrayan Defense Forces continue to maneuver around these two very large cities and are just to the north of the city. And as I've talked about in previous videos, again, this is a very large military target. It would be a large military target to take for really any nation state. From the United States, Russian Federation, you name it, going after two fairly significant, densely populated urban areas surrounded by foothills and mountains, with an opposing force well entrenched around the city, and possibly the use of conscription to continue to fortify its ranks, meaning the Amhara militias. Again, it would be a very tough nut to crack indeed. But we will continue to monitor that situation and obviously report. Again, it's a very ongoing, free-flowing situation. The fighting continues. We're looking at fairly significant amounts of forces, numbering in the tens of thousands, quite frankly, on both sides, that have moved forces in the vicinity of Dessie and Kombolcha. So a very intense, very large battle, probably the largest battle yet to have been seen in this ongoing war. At times, you would think that the engagements early on, late 2020, early 2021, as the Abiy loyalists, the federal forces, were marching on Mekele, that we would have seen large-scale engagements around that city. But at the time, quite frankly, the Tigrayan Defense Forces were nowhere near fully mobilized, and a lot of the mobilization that did occur were because of the atrocities that obviously occurred. So the amount of manpower now being utilized by the Tigrayan Defense Forces and involved in this conflict is simply much, much greater than we saw it early in the conflict. And again, huge amounts of forces, tens of thousands of forces, marshaled around Dessie and Kombolcha, fighting for those two cities. We will again continue to monitor, and as it sorts itself out, we will obviously bring more information to you as soon as we can. In other areas of the conflict, fighting rages east of Weldia. As we know, the Tigrayan Defense Forces have seized control of the town of Shifra, and it is believed now the Afar regional forces, supported by some elements of the Ethiopian Federal Forces, are indeed counterattacking with the intent of retaking Shifra. Our understanding is the first attack that was launched by some of these Afar militias were driven off by the Tigrayan Defense Forces. This is not over with yet. The fighting continues, and again, we will keep an eye on it. Obviously, a little bit different in terms of the landscape. It's very flat and not hilly at all, like we've seen some of the other areas of the conflict. The operations that are taking place in Shifra are not a huge amount of forces in terms of the overall deployment of the Tigrayan Defense Forces. It is not a large amount of force by any stretch of the imagination that the TDF has deployed within the vicinity of Shifra, but again, fighting continues in that area as well. In terms of the Eritrean border, we continue to receive reports that the Eritrean army continues to mass along the border and deploy heavy artillery within the border areas, especially just north of Adigrat. We continue to hear of a continued buildup of forces just across the border, possibly to be used in some sort of desperation attempt to relieve the stresses that are currently on the Ethiopian Federal Forces, the Amhara militias. So in case that Dessie were to fall, Kombolcha were to fall, it is possible that we could see some sort of limited or even a fairly large-scale operation by the Eritrean army in an attempt to possibly move south along the B-20 and then towards the A2 highway with the intent of possibly threatening Mekele at some point, which would then naturally draw forces from operations in the northern Amhara region in the vicinity of Dessie, remove some of those forces and relieve pressure on the northern Amhara front for the Amhara regional forces and the forces of the Eritrean, the Abiy loyalist forces that are operating in the region. But again, that is the current situation. We're really watching the ongoing airstrikes that are occurring in and around Mekele. Again, this is also drawing some international attention as well. So again, anytime you have a Air Force that has the perception that it is bombing civilian areas, there's always the possibility of international intervention at some point. And there are a variety of actors that could, in fact, intervene on behalf of the Tigrayan Defense Forces if they felt that indeed the Air Force was being used to target innocent civilians. And that could quickly change the dynamics of this conflict. Is that going to happen? Probably not at this stage, but it is possible. And of course, we are going to keep our eye on the situation, and especially right now, I may do a later report on the ongoing engagements that are taking place around Dessie, and then obviously, to a limited extent, there is continued fighting, fairly heavy fighting that is taking place east of Weldia within the vicinity of Shifra. But that's all we have now. Of course, we will report as soon as we have more information. Have a great day, everybody.